All right, we're back with Linda Runyon. Linda.
George, I just discovered something that I think I ought to tell everybody right now, and I don't have that. Well, I'll tell the story about the cactus, okay, and then I can talk about this. One day when I first arrived in Arizona, my brother, who had a Jeep, invited me to go out. It was 100 degrees, and he wanted to give me what he considered the full bore experience there of walking on the desert at 100 degrees. So, I was excited. Boy, was I excited. And, of course, I had a pair of shorts on instead of diamond gusset jeans, right? And wrong. I did. I had the shorts, shouldn't have, but I did. And the way of life is totally different out there for safety's sake. And you have to have long pants, jeans, and boots, type thing. But I, myself, was in heaven at being so hot from the Adirondack cold that, the shorts, and, he made me wear regular shoes instead of the sandals I had on. And anyway, making a long story short, I got a little tired, a little maybe disorientated with the heat, and I started, now this is what I want to talk about, I started walking my Adirondack way. Now, there's two ways of walking. There's the way you walk on the desert, and if you've ever watched Cody Lundine's TV survival show, he's an old student of mine years ago, watch him walk. He actually does barefoot, which is absolutely incredible. That, of course, is the true way that the Hohokam were, and he sticks to it. Okay. Well, it's a way of walking, though. It's a way of feeling your way along in a wholly different way, and your eyes are rooted to where you're going, not looking all around. In the Adirondacks, I was like a chipmunk, looking all around for bear and everything. I got used to being that way, and I walked heavy, up and over logs. It's a heavier way of walking, a deliberate way, less worry about rattlers, less worry about cactus. And it's totally the opposite of the way you walk in Arizona. This is a good survival tip for those of you that might travel to the desert or back and forth. Two different ways there. Well, of course, I went over the cholla burrs with my sneakers, like everybody does. I did in my classes if we didn't stay on the path. And the cholla burrs get stuck on the end of your sneakers, and then when you climb over something, which you shouldn't do, but if you do have to climb over something, they get stuck in your butt. And I was rooted to about 10 cholla burrs that were stringing out from the back of my sneakers, had no idea they were there, absolutely none, and I had to stand embarrassed for over 20 minutes or more while my own brother picked out hundreds of those locket hairs with tweezers. He always carried tweezers. That's a good survival thing, by the way.
Now Linda, I wanted to ask you about the cholla. They call jumping cholla. They say it's a myth that they actually jump out and get you. But now I just wonder about that. In reality, I of course have never been able to photograph a cholla actually in motion. But
no, George.
But one would swear.
If you're that close to it, if you're that close to it, and you're walking by it, it gets you. But it's not jumping on you.
It doesn't actually jump, but it seems as if it were.
It sure does.
Because you think you're avoiding it, and you get stuck anyway. And they have to keep reminding us that it's a myth that it didn't come out and get you and jump out and get you. But again, I need to keep being reminded.
That's because you're not out there all the time. You see, you're not.
Yeah, they don't really jump. They don't really jump. They don't really.
Right. But boy, do they hurt when they're. But there I wasn't. I couldn't even get my shoe off. But I'll get off the story because I did print it.
Now those things, those spines, I mean, they can easily go right through the soles of your shoes.
Oh,
they
yeah.
can puncture tires. I mean, you can't imagine how incredibly sharp and strong they are.
Yep, they really are, and every time I see any new YouTube thing with some poor child or person or motorcyclist, the emergency rooms are getting on to how you have to treat it, you know. And honestly, I don't want to get on that subject, but as a nurse, I mean, I really would myself view it like there's no way in heck I would knock the child out. I'm sorry to say that, but I would. Because I know the pain that child must be in, or that person. And it might take hours. I mean, the EMTs have a really hard time getting somebody in an ambulance. I could see that on the latest YouTube one, getting them in the ambulance because they couldn't touch him. They couldn't, you know, to move him was to move these little burrs along on your skin because they attach everywhere that they go. It's quite a negative thing. So give it a wide berth when you see it, and you get used to giving it a wide berth. If you're walking on the desert, the wonder of it is that there's enough food there to feed all of California. You know, I always saw things that way. And I thought, good heavens, look at the calcium and the amount of liquid in that gel for like thousands of people, you know. It really is a fact. It look at the positive way. Give it a wide berth when you're walking around it, and always knock it off and do not, as I say, set fire to it on the bush because you can't move fast enough. And it's a wonder, that plant, because it's to me it's just amazing to see cattle eating them like they're nothing. Cattle chew them down like they're clover heads back here. I mean, seriously, I have stood and watched cattle out there chew the cactus like it's nothing. It's just incredible how they can do that. But whatever. Let me get on to something else that might help you if you are traveling out there, and that is don't climb over things unless you absolutely have to. And the second story I want to tell you, climbing over things, always look on the other side. We carried snake sticks. This was after a lot of trial and error. And I had a special stick, and I was never without it out there. And I put the red paint, you know, and went down and bought a little tiny can of it in a hardware store, and I painted the end of that and a few other tools that I carry with me because it was a lot easier to see them if you lay them down in the sand and it's really hot and you forget where you put them. And if they're iridescent, you're going to see them quicker. So that's another little trick you can use when you're out there. And I always carried, and silly as it sounds, a sheet. Because all the food that I gather, and this is all in the books and the materials, all the food that I gather, all the bugs and such would run out, and because that magnifies the heat, and it's like the lens of a camera to them, and they will leave quick. You know, put a pile of cholla burrs, for instance, to take back with you, and they will run out so that you're not carrying a scorpion or something like that to your car, especially redding it. And always looked on the other side and took my snake stick. If I had to go over something and I couldn't see on the other side what I was going to step down on, that is always where I would use the snake stick. And only once did I have something shoot out, and it was a jackrabbit, and oh my gosh, I almost passed out because I did. I thought it was a rattler. And one time I did have a rattler next to me about 1.5 feet from my ankle, and I have to thank my brother because I believe he saved my life. He always carried his gun with him when he was out there, had a license for it, and told me not to move. And
by the way, you don't even need a license anymore for concealed carry in Arizona. They've actually, with all the new gun restrictions, Arizona is actually going in the opposite direction. So now, of course, not only can you freely carry unconcealed, but now even concealed. So Again, the hour has passed too quickly. We're out of time, but we'll be back next Monday with Linda Runyon.
Thank you, George.